Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Hannah Frizzy, and I'm a programming librarian here at Cary Memorial Library. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank the Friends of Cary Library for sponsoring this program. Their support is what allows us to run wonderful programs like the one we'll be having today. This program is being recorded and will be posted to the library's YouTube channel. And if you have any questions for Bill, please enter them into the Q&A and we'll have time at the end to go over them. Now I'd like to introduce our guest. Bill Gette is the former sanctuary director at the Joppa Flats Education Center in Newburyport, Massachusetts. A skilled teacher and field trip leader, he has been leading domestic and international history expeditions since 1986. He has led very successful programs throughout the United States and to all 7 continents. So please join me in welcoming Bill Gette.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the introduction. I'd be interested at the end of the presentation, how many of you have been to Trinidad? And we're going to the main island of Trinidad. The country is actually Trinidad and Tobago. But we're focusing on Trinidad. And so if you look in the lower right-hand corner of my map here, Trinidad is the island that you see with the arrow pointed to it, and Tobago is just slightly above. Tobago is only about 50 miles or so from the shore of Trinidad, so it's not very, very far away. There's an airline that has something like 12 to 14 flights a day that go back and forth between Trinidad and Tobago. And I've been to led programs to both Trinidad and Tobago. But again, our focus this afternoon will be on Trinidad. It's a very interesting place. Trinidad, notice all the islands and the Lesser Antilles and the Windward Islands. They are not actually part of the continent of South America. Trinidad is. It's on the continental shelf of South America. So that's where we're heading. And specifically where we're going to focus on our presentation, we're going to start at Asa Wright, how she pronounced her name, a nature center. And that is in the Arima Valley in the northern mountain chains, the northern range. One crow will be going there. It's on the slope on the north of the island. We'll Manzanilla and we'll go to Nariva Swamp and then Caroni Swamp. So these are programs that you would book through the Asa Wright. And it's actually operated. If you were looking at bookings or availability or things of this nature, you'd go to HADCO. That's HADCO. Those are all capitals, but experiences at Asa Wright Nature Center. So that I highly recommend it. I took groups there for many years. Then they actually closed down for a while, and then under new management. So I haven't been there under the new management, but I've looked at their website. Looks really good. So from the airport is you see Port of Spain. It's a little bit to the west of Port of Spain, and to get from the airport, international airport to Asa Wright, it seems like it's a really long ride, but I think it's about an hour and a half, something like that. And after you leave the main highway at say at Arima, which is just south of that red dot you see there, then you go up this it's really beautiful ride up into the northern range. So this is what it looks like. You have this balcony, porch, whatever you want to call it, and there are all kinds of bird feeders, both down at ground level and hanging from the over the beams over the porch here. So the viewing, you're looking down the Rima Valley. It's really a stunning view. So this is a really difficult way to start your morning. Okay, you come up and you grab your cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever, and you just sit here on these stools and you just watch first of all, looking down the Rima Valley and just looking at the various different birds that are coming in. So this is the view that you're going down. So it's beautiful to sit. Even if you have a telescope or binoculars, you can see parrots and parakeets and birds of prey in these trees. So not only are birds coming close to you in the bird feeders, but you can see things at quite a distance away. Just see beautiful palm with tanager sitting up and beautiful rainbow that was visible. And so these are some of the birds that are coming to the feeder. And when you're sitting on that deck, these birds are coming easily within 12 feet of you. Okay, many of them. So if you're doing photography, you could spend hours there just taking the photograph. This is a violaceous euphonia. Um, this is the female. She's cryptically colored, like a lot of females are. Euphonia means beautiful of voice. So their songs apparently are very much appreciated. This is the female, okay? And this is the male. Stunningly beautiful. Notice the yellow crown near the front of the head. And it's really iridescence. What you're seeing here is that bird moves around. It always is a little bit blue, but it's stunningly blue in good sunlight because you get the iridescence off the feather. So in terms of size, about the size of, say, a tufted titmouse, very approachable. They're coming in, they're eating things like watermelon and bananas and things of that nature that they will put out on the feeders. Really, really beautiful bird. Okay. This is a bananaquet. This is a bird that's really quite common within the Caribbean. If you go to Puerto Rico or other places like that, Jamaica, you'll see banana quits with the distinctly down curved bill because in a way they feed sort of like hummingbirds some of the time. They use that bill to reach into blossoms to get the nectar and the pollen. But it's not unusual to be sitting, if you're out an outdoor patio and there's a sugar bowl, that these birds will fly in and actually take sugar out of the sugar bowl. Really sort of fun. Okay. This is another honey creeper. Okay. These honey creepers are related to tanagers. They're in the same family with tanager. And this is the green honey creeper. This is the female. The bicolored bill there, the black upper mandible and the yellow underpart. And here's the male. Now, I don't know if I were naming this, I don't think I would have named it a green honey creeper, but that's its name. Maybe turquoise honey creeper, or maybe that name was already taken from somewhere else. But you again notice that deep down curved bill, slightly down curved bill for reaching into flowers. Okay. And here's another honey creeper. So Trinidad has all these honey creepers, and when they have bird feeders and they put out fruit, you get to see lots of them. This is a purple honey creeper. This is the female. And I think she's just stunning. Look at that eye, but the lores is the area between the eye and the base of the bill. Notice that sort of tan color. I think that's really pretty. And then she sort of has a smiling patch, if you think, a blue, and then the yellow underneath her throat. And this is the male. Talk about talk about beautiful legs. And then orioles. This is yellow oriole. Same size as our Baltimore oriole, very similar in size. They're coming in to eating the berries that are on these bushes, but also for the watermelon and papaya and other things that they put out. Now, this is a subtly colored bird, I think, but this is really, without being garish in good terms of color, this blue-gray tanager is just a really beautiful bird. You see this bird throughout the New World tropics. You know, certainly throughout Middle America, so Costa Rica, Panama, Belize, things like that. And again, I like to look at the detail. Notice the coloration of the wings. It's sort of a turquoise color, but then just right where at the bend of the wing, you have that really, really subtle color. Okay. And palm tanager. And here's of course, if you are going to have putting out feed, hey, it's really nice to have bird baths because birds, of course, very important to maintain their feathers, both to get rid of mites, and fleas and things of that nature, ticks, but also to keep get rid of dirt and so forth. And it's a way to cool down. But this feather maintenance among birds is absolutely critical. Just think if you had to wear the same pair of clothes for 6 months of the year. because these birds do molt occasionally, get new feathers. But it's absolutely imperative that you keep those clothes in the best possible working condition, and that's bathing and self-preening are really important. This is, and you might say, okay, Bill, why is that a white-lined tanager, the female? Doesn't look like any white line. Sometimes these characteristics are not visible until you hold the bird in the hand or you see it fly. There's the female and there's the male. If you look very carefully, you might see a tiny little white, in this case, vertical line on the side of this bird. So all these in North America, up in my area, Massachusetts, I mean, we have Baltimore Oriole, we have Orchard Oriole, and that's about it. But when you get into Middle America, you get this amazingly wonderful array of tanagers. This is Silver-beaked Tanager. This is a female. Now, this is one, as terms of a tanager, this is bigger and heavier set than, say, our Baltimore Oriole. So there's a female. And there's a male. That's where it gets the name Silver-beaked Tanager. Beautiful, that amazing velvety color. Yeah. Hummingbirds, of course, are in the eastern part of the United States. We typically get in a year get maybe 2 or 3 hummingbirds. Some of them are just coming in from the west, but our ruby-throated hummingbird is the common one. This is white-necked Jacobin. It's interesting with bird names. So many bird names, they're an absolute disaster when trying to, for a beginning bird watcher. For example, you have warblers that are called water thrushes, okay, or oven birds or yellow throats. They're all wood warblers, but the names, and the same thing holds true with hummingbirds. This is a female white-necked Jacobin. And if you very often wonder, well, how do they reach into flowers and get pollen and nectar? Notice the tongue, and that tongue is only about a half or a third of how long that tongue actually comes out of the end of the bill. So this is a female, and here is the male. So you might notice the throat and the side of the face, that really, really dark blue. If that bird were to turn its head slightly away from us, that would turn to be black. Because these feathers do have pigment, but what you're seeing in these bright, beautiful iridescent colors is the structure of the feather themselves. When the feathers are formed, little pieces of melanin are inserted into the feathers, and those little crystals of melanin act as prisms, so you get this iridescent coloration that you see. But if you get on an angle where you're not getting a good reflection, that blue turns to black. So there are these trails that lead down, and I always feel comfortable. Now there are snakes. You have to be vigilant about snakes, and if you have a path, it's a good idea to walk in the path and not into the shrubbery. But these paths are well maintained. Go for a walk, and then here in this valley, you have these nice little stream and water features where you can have a bath, go for a small swim, cool down. Something that you'll see throughout the New World tropics. These are termite nests, and the termite. This is an old one. It's beginning to break up again, but this is made from digested wood material, fecal matter, wood dust, and it feels like styrofoam. Okay, it's lots of holes in it. It's really very, very light. But this is where a deserted termite colony. And then on the grounds of Asa Wright, and well, just walking through the woodlands, you see all these heliconia. This happens to be the lobster claw heliconia. Notice the shape of the upper two blossoms. They're sort of curled. That's where the hummingbirds, with their curved bills, can reach in and get to the flower and the nectar inside. Now, hibiscus, it's everywhere. Yeah. And mimosa. To me, this looks like fireworks, a magnificent 4th of July fireworks display. And just all these native plants that you see. It looks like, someone said to me one time, it looks like a forest of house plants. Because this is, of course, these are what have been domesticated and been brought inside. Now, Antshrike, this is a female barred Antshrike. Now, there are a lot of ant birds, Antshrikes, ant vireos, ant pittas, Antshrikes, and they are ant swarm followers. And there are also ant tanagers also, lots of different ant things. When you look at your field guide, you'll see this because they are closely associated with the swarms of army ants. And if you have never seen one, I hope you get an opportunity to see a swarm because there will be of these army ants, there will be millions of them, okay, moving across the forest floor. And as they move, these ants are going after other ants and scorpions and lacewings and whatever other insects are, and they all overwhelm this prey item. Say it's a moth, okay, and they just rip it apart, and they carry some of that food back to they call it a bivouac, where the main group of the army ants are. But these army ants will go up into trees. I've been in Belize one time and watched a swarm of army ants. I didn't see them at first. I heard them. If you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of ants, even tiny little ants, they do make a noise as they're walking through the forest floor. And we just watch them. And they move slowly. You could easily walk away from them, no problem. But they overwhelmed a tarantula. I saw them go into a hole. The tarantula tried to escape, and they all descended upon it and just ripped it all apart. So these birds, the antshrikes, ant vireos, ant pittas, and things like that, they will follow along these army ant swarms at the edges. And as these lacewings and other insects are trying to escape, these birds will pick off those fleeing insects. So there's a whole group of birds that are called ant birds. They're ant followers. They're dependent on the ants. And this is the barred antshrike female, and now you can see why it's called a barred antshrike. This is the male. Very, very alert. They're looking for insects and things that are escaping from the ants. Coming back to hummingbirds, this is copper-rumped hummingbird. Pretty good name for it, okay? And blue-chinned sapphire. All these coming into these native plants or cultivated plants that are in the gardens and coming into the bird feeders. Now, love mockingbirds. Mockingbirds are in the family Mimidae. They're in the same family with catbirds and mockingbirds and brown thrashers. Okay, so they're all good. And this our mockingbird, northern mockingbird, is Mimus polyglottis. Okay, the bird of many voices. And this is the tropical mockingbird, which is really quite common throughout Central America and northern parts of South America. Okay. A very interesting group of these are the aura pendula. Okay. Um, Aura meaning gold, pendula meaning hanging, something that's hanging. And this is the crested. You don't see the crest here. It's not terribly obvious most of the time. But this is a bird that it's bigger than a blue jay, smaller than, well, but maybe crow size altogether. And this is where they make their nest. And the opening in to get into notice the going from the right hand side, the second nest over, you could really see the entry hole into that nest. And the females are the ones that go down into the ground and in the fields, and they're picking up grasses. Okay, long strings. And then the females are actually tying knots, okay, to knot together and weave together these hanging nests. Now, those nests, because the opening is real at the top and the eggs and the young are at the bottom, gives the young and the eggs some level of protection. Um, very often the oropendolas build these nests. This colony will build their nests that have fire ants in it. Okay, because the fire ants will provide a level of protection because they're trying to defend the tree. Okay, and their own colony, and they provide a level of protection from these birds and their bird nests. Excuse me. Okay. This is cocoa thrush. Really, it's a forest bird. It can be sometimes really quite difficult to see, but in terms of size and shape and behavior, it looks its behavior is that of our American robin. So many of these thrushes have that same, they're typically ground feeding. Now, of course, when berries become ripe, they will go up into the tree and get berries too. But this is a nice, beautiful one. And I think it's a very, very well named spectacled thrush. In terms of our American robin, this is slightly larger than our American robin. So this is a forest bird. Okay. Of all the hummingbirds, this is a tiny one. This is tufted coquette. This is the male. This is sort of a specialty of the northern range of Trinidad. But I've looked at this bird many, many times and looking for any design flaws I might have seen, and I certainly don't see anything. If you're going to make a hummingbird, a small, incredibly beautiful hummingbird, this is a pretty good design for that. Look at that amazing crest. Here it is going into flowers. No, notice the neck. Notice the feathers on the neck are displayed out. So let me just go back here. You don't see it here. You see those feathers right on the side of the neck, the orange with black spots. And here it is, it's flailing those things out. Hey, it's a really good way to display that you're an eligible male. Goodies, this little rodent, this is red-rumped. I don't think the rump is particularly red, but that's okay. But there are a number of different agoutis in Middle and South America, and they all have this design where the rear end is much higher than the front end. But they love to come to the feeders. They're very commonly seen, easy to photograph, because they'll be on the ground eating watermelon, whatever is on the ground. So just by going to a nature resort, and there are other really beautiful nature resorts that you can go to in Trinidad, I just happened to feature this one, where they will have feeders and you can have this really great time. So if you really like surfing or scuba diving or thing, you could go to some of these lodges and you get all of that. Not at Asa Wright. Okay. And this is a golden tegu lizard. This one was about 4.5 feet long. Nothing to worry about. And it loves to come in and eat its basic primary eating fruit. But as you're walking along the trail and if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden one of these appear. It can be startling, but you're perfectly safe. Okay. And then there are a bunch of different trails that you can go see that let you good. And one of the key ones is going to see the ovenbird. Ovenbirds are restricted in range to, well, there's some in Trinidad, and they're also in northeastern part of South America. These are oil birds. And in transit, here we go. This is an owl butterfly. Notice that great big eye. That provides some level of protection for this butterfly from predators. Because if you're a bird and you're looking for a meal and you're flying through and you see that, you could interpret that as being some kind of mammal or possibly a snake. So that is really, it certainly looks like an eye, at least it does to me. Yeah. And these are the oilbirds. This is a really strange bird. It's a very limited range, limited in numbers. And they get the name oilbird because their feathers and the body, they have a lot of fat that's oily. And what the indigenous people used to do is they would kill one of these birds and stick it on a stake and set it on fire, and that would be the torch. They would use that as a torch. But these are nocturnal fruit-eating birds. Nocturnal fruit-eating birds. And how their eyesight isn't particularly good, but they use echolocation like a bat in order to fly through the forest and locate fruit. They can see, that's it, but they are not nocturnal fruit-eating birds. Now this cave that we're looking into, there's a stream that flows right through the middle of it, and it's pretty dark, but you get the idea. So we're going to go up into the northern range, okay? And this is the type of thing. If you're in the New World tropics, you know it's going to rain sometime. So just be prepared for it. That's the beauty of being in a rainforest. This is a rainforest. So as the winds are flowing over the Caribbean and coming in basically from a northeasterly direction, the air that's full of moisture rises up, cools up a little bit, and you get this fog and rain. It's beautiful. This is the kind of environment you see. All these air plants, they uh, they are attached to a tree, but they don't get their nutrients from the tree. They get the nutrients from the air. That's why they're called air plants. Notice this limb. Believe it or not, that is a limb that's going across the lower third of my image. Notice all the mosses and all the ferns, just hundreds and thousands of different plants just growing. Notice in the background bromeliads. Okay, so this area, these rainforests, it's why it's so incredibly beautiful, and there's so much life there because there's so much moisture. These plants are getting the nutrient and the water just from the air, and they're growing all over these other trees, like bananas. Okay, yeah. And I guess for me, cocoa is just I just love chocolate. Okay, these here are some pods. These are becoming they're ripe. It's I think most people have never imagined where cocoa pods grow, but they're just basically on the major limbs of the tree or on the trunk. They're not at the end of limbs like you would say an orange or an apple or something like that. But these are very ripe. And so they're the beans themselves. So within that pod, you get all these beans. And I put a quarter there just so you could see the size. That's where your chocolate is coming from. And of course, you go to a place like Trinidad, you'll very often see a little roadside stand or something like that where they're selling their chocolate. It's really important you buy some. Yeah. And up in here, this is a rufous-tailed jacamar. And one of the ways that I found jacamars before walking through the woods, if you just sort of walk along and you see on the forest floor lots of butterfly wings, okay, you know you've been around a jacamar because jacamars hunt butterflies and they eat the body of the butterflies and they just discard the wings. So in terms of size, this bird is maybe the size of a catbird, something like that. But notice that amazing bill. Looks like a kingfisher. And just notice the head as I turn it, it goes from iridescent green to sort of dark. That's where that iridescence is coming from. Okay. Manzanilla, that's a day trip from the lodge. And you're going to, hey, you want to go to the beach. Okay. And this is really beautiful. You want to go for a swim? Go for a swim. It's really nice. But we're coming to look at seabirds and see shorebirds and things of that nature. And these are these amazing palm. When we were watching people climb these trees, just with bare feet, just amazing. Okay. For the example, this fellow climbing up into the harvesting coconuts, no ropes. I mean, he has a rope to there, but that's not what he's holding on to, and with his bare feet. Okay. Carob grackle. This is the female. Notice the toes here, the they have three toes for the vast majority of birds have three toes forward and one back. Some birds only have three toes. Some have two toes forward and two back, like on woodpeckers. But this is that foot configuration is the figuration of a theropod dinosaurs. Theropod dinosaurs. That's what we these. This is a dinosaur. We just happen to call it a bird. Scales on the feet, structure of the feet, all the same. And barn swallows. This is overwintering. These are the ones that will come up to New England for or some for breeding in the summer. Okay. And Nariva Swamp. This is an extensive wetlands. This is okay. Now, I don't know. Here, these gentlemen are, and we talk to them. They're very friendly. But with all the chemicals and the fertilizers, I'm not sure how healthy those fish are. But that's what they're doing. They're catching fish. And then you get into this is the Annie. Now we get Annies in southern Florida and we get some Annies in South Texas. This is a smooth billed Annie. There's also a groove billed Annie. So this is you very often see these birds in groups of five or six or seven, and they fly. And to my view, they're really pretty clumsy flyers. Okay, they're usually you see them around farm fields, grazing area for cattle, along roadsides, and they're eating grain, but they're eating insects too. And here, this is Wattled Jacana. Notice the wattle. That's that stuff that's hanging down from the base of the bill. So you might be able to see the feet. The feet are very, very large, which lets this bird walk across vegetation on top of the water, like lily pads and things of that nature. And they're looking for insects and fruit on the water plants. But they'll also, if there's a lily pad, they'll turn the leaf of the lily pad over, looking for anything that's attached to the underside of the leaf. Cattle egret. Now, uh, less than 100 years, we had no cattle egrets in the Western Hemisphere. They made their way over from Africa. And then from that time, within the last 100 years, they breed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So this is a bird that has done a very significant, very rapid range expansion. We now call ours Western cattle egret as opposed to ones in Africa, which are cattle egrets. I'm not sure why they made the change, but anyway. But notice this bird. This is in the height of its breeding readiness. Notice the plumes off the back of the head. They're mustard color or golden color. They have this patch on their breast. Notice from the eye, it's blue and then purple and then red and then orange and then yellowy orange. This bird is advertising to anybody around that it's old enough, it's breeding readiness, and I'm looking for a mate. That bill doesn't have that color in the non-breeding plumage. This is one of our tiniest falcons. This is actually called a kite, in this case, Pearl Kite. This is smaller than a blue jay. And I just happened, fortunately, was able to see this as we were driving through a small village. So it's feeding on things like worms, large insects, things of that nature. Tiny, tiny predatory bird. So going over to Caroni Swamp, this is a national park. There are tours that go through Caroni Swamp. It's really worthwhile doing so. And so this is Caroni Bird Sanctuary, okay, and it says it was established 1921, so it's been there for a while. And this is a type of bird. This is red-capped cardinal. This is a bird. Its typical range is, as you see here, around mangroves, along water courses of this nature. So this is the cardinal. If you look very carefully, Notice on its right leg, it's the left one as we're looking at it. Note it has a band on its leg. So obviously somebody caught this and put a band on its leg for research. Yeah. And this is the waterway that goes through. So you have one of these flat bottom boats, very stable boats that we were on would easily carry 16, 18 people, flat bottoms. So the water here is very, very calm. So you can get up, you can get reasonably good photographs because again, the boat isn't moving that much. And you go through these channels with all this overhanging vegetation, and you're looking for birds that are either nocturnal feeding birds or crepuscular. Crepuscular meaning they're feeding either in the early morning or in the late afternoon versus diurnal during the daytime or nocturnal at night. So you're going through there, so you can obviously get really good looks at things. This is mangrove. These mangroves are island builders. Because notice all these amazing to me prop roots. Notice the major trunk of the tree, but notice those spider-like roots that are going down to meet the ground. Because there's such a tangle of those roots, if you wish, it collects a lot of sediment, leaves, and things like that, and that's what starts the building of new land, islands, and things of that nature. So you're just going along, and every once in a while you'll see a tree boa. I don't know what species of tree boa this is, but it's just hanging out. This is one of the finest birds that you'll see in these. This is a nocturnal or crepuscular hunting heron called boat-billed heron. Notice the eyes that are looking at you. You see how large they are? That's because they're feeding at night. But their main way of feeding is that bill of theirs is soft. Okay. And what they do is when the sun goes down, they go down into the muddy areas, shallow water, and they use that bill to probe into the mud, looking for shellfish or worms and things of that nature. But during the daytime, they hang out in these trees, and by going into Caroni Swamp or places like that, you can very often see these roosting birds. Sometimes it can be very difficult to see them because they're so well concealed, but sometimes they're out in good. So I've seen this in Panama and Costa Rica, Belize, Trinidad, a number of different places. Get a really good view of that amazing beak of it. If you're familiar with size, this is the same size as it's chunkier and heavier, but it's about the same size as a black-crowned night heron. This is something you want to see. So you get all these vines, lianas that are hanging out of the trees. This is looking to the north. That's the northern range where the Asa Wright Nature Center is. And when we come to now, because of restrictions and the preservation, these are the Scarlet Ibises. You're not permitted to get very close, and they come in to roost together in a communal roost in the evening time. So typically the lighting isn't great or anything, but you get a sense for these amazingly beautiful. And this is what the trees look like when they come in to roost. All these amazing um, Scarlet Ibises. We're going to go up to the northern Grande Riviere, going up to the northern part. We were up here for 2 nights, and this is one of the things they take great pride in is their preservation of the sea turtle nesting site. The hotel we were on, lodge, it was rustic, but it was fabulous. It was right on the beach. And this is a little village where the inn was. Get a sense that these people have a prosperous living. And I had no trouble at all when we'd have break time. I don't rest well. I need to be moving, but I would just get up and take a walk for an hour or so, just along the roadway, just looking for uh, wildflowers and birds. And I sort of had to pass on this one, but this was having to do with playing cricket. You got to show up at 5 o'clock. And this is the hotel that we stayed in. So I am standing on the beach looking at our hotel, and this is the beach. What we're coming to see is the turtles. This is I'm very much interested in insects. I've been working on a lot of butterflies and insects in general, but the more and more I know about these dragonflies, this happen to be called a crimson skimmer, like birds. The names very seldom say dragonfly in the name, but the meadowhawks and darners and all these kind of things. But uh, anyway, really quite beautiful. And these are ground doves. We get ground doves in the southwestern part of the United States. Kiskadee, this is a Kiskadee flycatcher. Gets its name because its call is D, Kiskadee, Kiskadee. Now, this used to be called Kiskadee flycatcher. Okay. But what they studying these Kiskadee flycatchers, they found out that these birds are not only flycatchers, but they also behave as kingfishers. So they weren't just a flycatcher anymore. So the name was changed from Kiskadee flycatcher to Great Kiskadee. Now, house wren, I need to change the title on this one. This is now referred to as Southern house wren, and the house wrens that we have here in North America are called Northern house wrens. But I really, well, in my view, the bill looks different shape than ours. It's a little bit bigger, but otherwise they sing with a similar song as our house wren. And just like our house wrens that you see around, um, communities and singing, that's the same with this bird. This is giant cowbird. When we were looking at the oropendulas at Asa Wright, very often these are the female lays her eggs in the nests of other birds, like oropendulas. But the oropendulas tolerate it to a degree because the males are protective of their trees and they will help defend against other possible predators of the oropendulas. But this guy definitely has an attitude. He's strutting back and forth like somebody who thought he was very important. Caracara, okay. Now we get caracaras, not this type, but northern caracaras in say Florida and South Texas and places like that. This is the yellow-headed caracara. This is the adult bird. So they are scavengers to a degree, but they will also feed on snakes and small mammals and things of that nature. White-tipped dove. And we get southern rough-winged swallows occasionally in the southern part of the United States, but this is a common bird throughout Middle America. It looks very similar to our northern rough-winged swallow, which breeds here in New England. But notice the throat here is really quite a buffy color, and the buffiness on the belly and things like that, which our northern rough-winged swallows typically do not have. Southern lapwing. Okay. Notice that pink thing, that's a little spur on the wing. Okay. Now I've seen these birds protecting their nest. Well, if you're familiar with killdeers and how the killdeer will make a squawk and try to lead you away from their nest, I've seen these lapwings do exactly the same thing. There was a pair with a young one in a field, and a dog ran into the field, and I presume it was the male. I'm not sure, but one of the two, because you really can't tell them apart. The male started sort of flopping away and leading away, and led the dog way down to the other end of the field. And when the dog was about to grab it, or thought it was about to grab it, of course, it just flew away. So killdeers do that, semi-palmated plovers, a lot of birds do that routine to protect their young ones and their mate. So This is the piping guan, okay, is a really endangered species um, in Trinidad, and they have gone out of the way to set aside areas for this. And we are very fortunate to be able to go up. Now, in terms of this is like a size of a little bit bigger than a pheasant or something like that. But this is the Trinidad piping guan. It's endemic to Trinidad. Now, I just showed this. Here's a euphonia that's in a cage, yeah, um, which is sort of too bad. But you'll see a lot of people with these cages, with these caged birds, as if they don't have enough right in their backyards. But in any cases, what happens is sometimes they will capture the birds that are that might otherwise would these euphonies don't migrate, but birds that do migrate up into North America for the breeding time. And when the bird's internal calendar says, "Hey, it's time to migrate," the birds really go bonkers. They're bouncing up against the cage, and they'll be bouncing outside against the side of the cage that's in the direction that their genetic code tells them they're supposed to go in order to get to their breeding grounds. It's interesting to watch these type of. This is a spotted sandpiper. This is in its breeding plumage. In the non-breeding plumage, it doesn't have the spots, but these are the ones that breed in our area, New England. Um, when I worked along the coast of Maine, the Mainers call these teeter tails because they tend to sit and they tend to bob their tail all the time. Teeter tails. Okay. And then finish up the presentation with um, going to be right. This is again within 100 feet of the hotel. Is these are the tracks of these big leatherback turtles, the females that are coming up to lay their eggs. So they have to come up above the high tide line and get onto the beach. These are huge turtles. So what she is doing, she's digging a hole with her hind flippers and then will lay her eggs into that hole. So just get a sense of size for these things. I worked on loggerhead turtles in Georgia for a summer, and once those females started laying eggs, nothing in the world would disturb them. They were not going to move once they started laying eggs. No, not that we want to harass them, but hey, once they're starting laying eggs, that's the end of it. And so here she is done with the laying her eggs, and she's moving her way back into the ocean. Now this is the downside of this because there are a number of turtles, female turtles, trying to lay their eggs in a very small, limited area. One turtle female will lay her eggs in a hole, and maybe the next day another turtle will come up and at least partially dig up where she had been laying her eggs, and they deposit his eggs. And so you get these eggs, and they are not hard shells like a chicken egg. They are much more like a ping pong ball. Okay. And soon, of course, as soon as they are exposed, okay, then these are black vultures that are coming in to have a rich feed on all these eggs. Okay, well that's what I wanted to cover today about um, Trinidad. And if you've been to I don't know, can they unmute themselves, Hannah, in this format?
Um, no, but if you have any like things to share, you can definitely share them in the chat. Or if you have any questions, you can definitely feel free to put your thoughts there as well. Um, definitely
Just
take some time to do
as
that.
we're, if you're thinking of composing questions, so the country is Trinidad and Tobago, the two together. Trinidad is the
Mm.
big island, Tobago the small one. So you can book tours with different bird watching groups and things like that that can take you both to Trinidad and Tobago. And they would probably book you into a place like Asa Wright, but you can look into that. When I used to take people, I would take them to both Trinidad and Tobago, and we would stay on the easternmost end of Tobago at what was the Blue Waters Inn. And I know that they're still still in business. So you might want to consider that if you want to have a really wonderful experience. First of all, you can visit rainforests. You can walk in tropical lowlands. You can, it's just so much going on there, and the birds are amazing. Okay, so I don't know
Yeah,
if we have any.
it doesn't seem like we have any questions right now, but I do have a couple. You mentioned that there was the endemic bird. I can't think of the name right now. But did you find that there were other like endemic species that you were coming across, like either like plant or like insects or animals, or is it mostly like stuff that migrates from South America and other countries
Well, one of the things
when
is
it comes
that
to?
on Trinidad, they have recorded at the Asa Wright, that one place, which they've been doing that for decades, and they have very talented people. So I know their accounts are good. They say that they've recorded 256 species of birds, which for a small island is pretty good. But Trinidad is not really on the main migration routes. For example, I mean,
Hmm.
because Trinidad is set really quite far to the east of South America. They don't get nearly as many birds, say, for example, as Costa Rica, which is on the main migration route of all the birds that are migrating from South America to North America. I mean, in Costa Rica, they have recorded in a tiny country size of West Virginia over 900 species of birds. Okay,
Hmm.
so it so most of the birds that you're going to be seeing there are year-round residents and things. Now, in terms of the piping guan, I mean that's a really important one, and the oilbird. That's very you can only very few places can see there. And another bird
Hmm.
that I don't have photographs of is the bellbird. Okay, that's another real specialty bird that they're very easy to hear. They're very, very difficult to see. Because my
Hmm.
wife, who's not a bird watcher, she's interested in lots of things, but she's not really a bird watcher. We were hearing this bellbird singing, and I'm looking over here to this direction and it's singing, and I'm singing. I'm saying, where the heck is that bird? And she turns around, and right behind us is a bellbird. When they sing, they tend to send their voices, so it is absolutely their song is something like boing boing like a bell, and they
Interesting.
seem to be able to project their voice in such a way that I'm looking in completely the wrong direction. But anyway, and I've been birding for 65 years, so I think I usually can find things. But anyway,
Sometimes it's good to be humbled just a little bit by the
yes,
people you love.
yes. So
Um,
so
yeah,
anyway,
another,
I think if people look in this if you're interested in the natural history of the world, you get birds, mammals, incredible views of a rainforest, and the accommodations are good. So,
yeah. Were you able to try any chocolate while you were there?
oh, I cannot pass by a chocolate stand. It's impossible. I don't know. Chocolate is one of those things that I think the divine right of kings says we have to have chocolate or something.
I'm glad
Uh,
to hear that.
yeah.
All
Anyway,
right. Thank you, Bill, for the incredible journey through Trinidad. And thank you, everyone who joined us today. If you would like to view this program again, it has been recorded and will be posted to the library's YouTube channel within the next few days. I will also be including the link to the video and the recap email that will be sent out soon, along with the feedback form that you can fill out. And if you also enjoyed Bill's program today, there will be another one on Friday, August 21st at 1 p.m. That you can register for. That's about, I believe, backyard birds. Um, yeah, thank you again for everyone's participation, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Bill.
thank you very much, Hannah. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Likewise.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.